Welcome to The Voice of Retail. I'm Michael LeBlanc, NRF Top Retail Voice for 2026 and Rethink Retail 2026 Top Retail Expert. This podcast is produced in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. Jayme, welcome to The Voice Retail Podcast. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's great to hear your voice. You and I were together in New York, just over a week ago. It feels like yesterday, but also feels like a month ago. So much goes on when we're there. So it's great to hear your voice, and thanks again for joining me on the mic.
Yeah. Excited to our conversation. We've got lots to talk about.
You're not my first IBMer, so to speak, in the history of the pod on the show. Many people from your organization have joined me, but let's not assume a couple of things. Let's not assume anyone knows who you are. And let's also not assume they know exactly what IBM does here in Canada and around the world. So why don't we start there? Where are we finding you today?
Yeah, for sure. I am here in Toronto. We got a snowstorm swirling outside. Yeah. Been here in Canada for several years. I've been at IBM 25 years.
Wow. So where did you grow up? Where are you from?
I'm originally from the U.S. I'm from Connecticut. Went to school in Boston.
Nice. Very nice. Well, welcome. Let's.
Thank you.
What do you do for a living? Tell us about your background. I mean, a long time tenure at IBM, which is not unusual. IBM, once people kind of get there, they tend to love it and not leave. But tell us what you do for a living, and then tell us a little bit about IBM.
Yeah, absolutely. So I lead our consumer industry at IBM Consulting in Canada. First, what I love about my job is that we are the only global consultancy organization within a major technology leading company. So we really are where trusted transformation meets powerful technology. And in today's world of rapidly evolving technology, in my mind, there's really no better place to be. But, to your question, what does this mean for the clients that I work with, which is really our Canadian retailers and our consumer goods companies, is we are helping them with everything from modernizing and securing their technology systems and infrastructure, improving supply chain performance, creating better customer and employee experiences. We help them adopt AI responsibly at scale with the right governance, maximize value from hybrid cloud platforms, and even partner with them to run their IT operations. So really everything from strategy to transformation to operations.
Now, in the long history of IBM, you've had several iterations that have been deep technology, AS400 mainframes or even laptops at one time. These things come and go. But what technology do you at IBM do? Are you just more a consulting shop than you are you talk about being a technology shop? What does that mean?
Yeah, so we really do it all on the consulting side. So obviously being within a major technology leading company, we have access to all of our IBM technology and products, especially as we see with watsonx and growing in the AI space and in hybrid cloud. But we also have strategic partners. We know that a lot of our clients are multi-platform, multi-solution. So we work closely with the likes of Adobe, Salesforce, SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, AWS, Google, and many others that we've had partnerships for years and years and years to really help clients get the value out of those applications and out of those platforms.
And so you basically come in and say, we're going to put a stack together of the best-in-class technology to suit your particular need at this particular time. Is that a kind of a good, concise description of what you do?
Yes, exactly, to help get the outcome that they're looking for.
All right, perfect. Well, as I said, you and I were together very recently, and you were the presenting sponsor, actually, thank you very much, of the Retail Council of Canada's NYC Tour of Stores in Manhattan, our annual fun get-together. And I thought we were chatting last year. Last year I did a AI version of the tour guide. I put a guide together, as you know, and I uploaded it into a Google LLM, and it created 2 fake hosts, and it became an episode kind of fun thing. But I want to do something. I want to do something a little different. We got enough AI in our lives. I want to do something a little bit different. And you and I were chitting and chatting off mic, and you said, "Hey, come on the pod, and I'd love to hear your impressions of the tour and the stores we went in." And then we're going to talk about a little bit later, the IBM Institute for Business Value put out a report own the agentic commerce experience. So we'll get to that a little later as well. So, but let's first start about this store tour. Now, for those listening, familiar or unfamiliar, Retail Council, I go down and curate the most newest, interesting stores for retailers from Canada that are in for the NRF Big Show. And on a Sunday, we get a big bus and we drive around and visit these stores. So let's jump right in. So the first store we went to was the French department store Printemps. And, you know, it's funny, Jayme, you and I talked about this. I debated putting that either first or last because, you know, in one way, it's like everything else looks, I won't say, you know, less, but everything, you know, it's just going to be hard to impress after Printemps. But at the other part, you know, thinking about the theatrics a little bit, the entertainment value, boy, we started at a really interesting and super place. Tell me about, you know, what you thought of Printemps, which is in One Wall Street. Talk about your impressions of that store.
Yeah, it really, I mean, you started us off quite impressive, and it really is hard to describe. I think the store manager talked about it best. It's almost like moving through a Parisian apartment, but there's really something, I would say, personal or almost intimate about it. You know, hand-drawn paintings, immense thought into the design, the decor. You've got these carefully curated displays. You know, maybe it's more like a Parisian apartment that's now converted into a museum. You know, spaces for customers to linger, to enjoy. And it's really not just that shopping destination. It's got in-store events and restaurants and bars and spas and private event spaces. So it really, truly is a destination.
You know, what struck me, and shout out to Michael who did the tour. You guys were hearing enough of me, so he took the mic and did an amazing job of from Printemps of walking everyone through. But it took a full half hour of pretty quick paced, just so the listeners can have a sense of the scale of the place. And it's, you know, were there any things that jumped out? What jumped out at me from a merchandising perspective and a business strategy perspective is, you know, their focus on small boutique brands that you really can't find anywhere else, even in New York City. And it got me thinking about, you know, as a department store, one of the challenges that department stores have, particularly at the higher end, is their vendors are themselves creating incredible stores. So it's a really I think it pulls away a bunch of customers from them into the brand store. Do you think of it in that way? And what were your impressions of their assortment and the way they merchandised it?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think some of the collections and the vintage collections, getting access to merchandise, dresses, other apparel, clothes that you can't find elsewhere in the US, and never mind in New York City. Knowing some of those vintage collection, the authenticity of it, you know, where it's come from, you know, who, you know, maybe wore it in a fashion week event. It was an impressive curation collection within the store.
You know what I thought was also interesting, thinking about employees, I know you guys do a lot of work in employee engagement, was how the employees can dress pretty much. There's no uniform other than, I did note on their lapels, they would have a pin that would identify them if you looked as Printemps employees. But what did you think of that idea that they encourage their employees to express themselves within context of the store? Do you think that's a pretty good model?
Yeah, I do. I think having that sort of individual creativity within that space, that's amazingly beautiful as a shopping destination, I think is a great idea. And I stopped to talk to a couple of store associates, and again, they're almost they're almost like guides in this journey as you pause to engage with them at different moments on our tour and different moments on the store, whether it was in the beauty area or right towards the end when we were in the shoes. And it was interesting, you know, kind of hearing their perspective of the store compared to other stores, their experience having been there, the customers they interact with. So I did. It was very easy to find the pins as well, to be able to identify them and interact with them.
You know, the one thing I wanted your comment on, and then we'll move on, was it is not in, let's say, a traditional retail cluster by any means, right? It's not on Fifth Avenue or in Soho or the Meatpacking District or even the Flatiron, several of which we visited. It's kind of on its own in Wall Street. I guess their assumption is that they're a big enough draw that people will go to them. What do you think of that decision? I mean, part of it was they wanted a particular building, and that was the building that honored their look. But do you think they've got some success ahead of them, or is that more of a challenge in a market like Manhattan?
No, I think they've got success. I think because they're also making their store more than just about shopping. It truly is a destination. You could almost make an afternoon or a morning of it with a lunch, go to the spa, a little bit of shopping. So it's almost destination experience first, with shopping being a part of that experience. It's not, in my mind, I didn't see it exclusively as a shopping destination. And I think that will pull people in, keep them longer for different purposes, which I think therefore will bring and attract variety of customers to the store.
Now, I'm going to ask you this as a kind of summary question, but I want to, we're hanging on Printemps, just like we spent more time on Printemps than anywhere else on the tour. We had retailers on the tour from all different kinds of formats, from all different kinds of geographies, and representing, different types of merchandise that, some look nothing like a Printemps store. Do you think there's a few, what lessons do you think anyone could take out of a tour or a store like that they could apply in any retail environment?
Yeah, I think one of the themes I sort of saw was around innovation really coming from courage and authenticity. And I think that comes through in a lot of the stores that we saw. But I think the strength and the power in connecting with customers, and what other retailers and brands can take from that is being authentic in your design choices and the way you think about stores and where you take risks, and whether you experiment with new or even go back to old concepts. That authenticity combined with courage, I think, is really what was one of the themes that I saw, and one of the things that really resonated with me at Printemps.
All right. So after Printemps, we got back on the bus. And by the way, shout out, thank you, weather gods in New York, for making no snow or rain and a pretty nice day. So we quickly moved to Fifth Avenue. And in this part of Fifth Avenue, we went to two stores side by each, as my friends from Quebec might say, Lacoste and the North Face. So talk about Lacoste, which I added. These are all new stores, by the way, if anyone's listening. That's one of the criteria, that they pretty much all have to be new 2025 stores, and ideally something you can't really find here in Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal, just so retailers can't just go and walk into that, something special. But what did you think of Lacoste and the North Face?
Yeah, Lacoste, I was chatting with one of my colleagues, Mark Innes, who's one of our other IBM retail leaders here in Canada, and this was one of his favorite stores. And I agree. As he said, and I think you mentioned it as well, a bit of the return to their roots, repositioning their brand to where they once were. And he felt they were strongly successful in creating an engaging atmosphere while really referencing the heritage of the brand. So, for me, that manifested in, we had the tennis rackets, the outdoor display, a full-size crocodile, the larger-than-life statue of René Lacoste, right? But then the heritage of the polos on the wall, organized by color, everything crisp and aligned to the brand, green and white and well organized. I thought the store was engaging, inviting, realigning to the brand, going back to that heritage. And I did see some digital indicators along the way, some prompts to really get customers to download their mobile app, join their loyalty program, and really continue the relationship beyond the physical store.
We had a bit of extra entertainment value as we walked about 5-7 minutes to the North Face. We found ourselves in the middle of a No Kings protest march, so we added a little bit of culture to our walk to the North Face. I love the North Face building, but I'm a big fan of architecture, so that's what stuck out to me. I also thought the massive interactive digital screen,
yes.
And I say interactive, it's not like you could touch them as a consumer, but they kept changing. What was your observations about the North Face?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a person who enjoys the outdoors, so I always love a great outdoor outfitter, but that digital wall, and not even just wall, I mean, it curls up onto the ceiling. So as you're moving up the stairs, you're moving up the mountain with the image of the people climbing the mountain. I thought it was great. What I would have loved even more is some opportunities to experience their products in the element, right? So if I the ability to hike a pretend hill, maybe climb a fake boulder and see how the shoes or the clothes work when you're, making awkward movements or things like that. But absolutely love the image. It draws you right in, draws you right up. And then everything's really curated and built around that.
We've seen some of that kind of interactivity in the States at Dick's Sporting Goods. They've
yes.
The House of Sports, so they've launched a few concepts where you've got huge climbing walls and you could take it for a run. We've seen that in other retailers here in Canada where they give it a try. I mean, Mech does a great job of making sure you can try on and move around and make sure you're comfortable in whatever you're buying. All right, from the North Face, we got back on the bus and we went to an area that's really blossomed. I mean, remember the Flatiron District used to be just really known, I think, primarily, I guess pre-COVID as kind of the place where you'd go to Italy in the Flatiron District. But really, it's become a bit of a shopping zone, a shopping, kind of like a shopping mecca. And we went to Carhartt. Now, Carhartt as a store was fairly utilitarian, but I thought they did a good job of just capturing the excitement of people walking in that store. And what did you make of Carhartt?
Yeah, it was one of the ones that I thought felt very authentic, very genuine. Everything is sturdy, reliable, from the merchandise, boots, coveralls, jackets, hat, but also in the store, the materials, the fixtures, the displays. What I really loved about the store, I think to your point of the energy coming in, was the store associates. So they appeared to be having fun and enjoying themselves. I mean, they were working together. They were yelling in a good way back and forth. I think I even saw one of them dancing a bit to the music while folding clothes. And I felt that energy carry throughout the store and carry into their interactions with each other and with customers. And it's really one of only a couple of stores where several store associates asked how I was doing, if I needed anything, how's your day going? And that energy really carried through in those interactions.
So from there, we went to a store that was added kind of late on to, it just opened up in late December, Gymshark. And that's one of their, the digitally native vertical brand that was creating waves in online. I think the big Shopify customer, they're always heralded as a big achievement. One store becomes a movement. But the Gymshark location, which is in the old Showfields building. So it was kind of a funny location in as much as it's in NoHo, just a bit north of Soho Shopping District. What did you think of that store? There's some really interesting merchandising features. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was small space, edgy, but really well optimized in terms of taking advantage of all the vertical real estate. They had that circular mobile clothes rack from the ceiling that was moving around. But even more than that, on the upper floors, they've got that one-on-one personal shopping and studio space. What I noticed was the mannequins. So some of the mannequins were 3D printed mannequins from real Gymshark athletes. So, I mean, now talk about a New Year's resolution, right? To have your own 3D printed mannequin. So they're really finding interesting ways of pulling their athletes and pulling their customers like literally into the store.
Did you notice how even the door pulls were a weight bar, a York weight bar? Like
yes.
They just no place in that store left untouched in terms of connecting it to weightlifting, right? You definitely know, they definitely know their community. Now we walked and we did a cluster of them, so we'll move pretty quickly through the cluster. But Target, we've been in Target before in Soho, but they really did a revamp of the entrance way, which, I think we can work in like 8 Targets, but it's getting some buzz. And I found it a very jarring experience having been in that store several times. And you walk in, you're like, is this the Target? Is this Target here? What did you think of their ideas? And, Target's on the way, trying to make a comeback. They've had some rocky results over the past 18 months. Do you think this is the beginning of some signs of creativity in that brand?
Yeah, I mean, I like the newly designed tunnel-like entrance. It had curated products and really cross-category. So clothes, home decor, paper stationery, and they were they were grouped into themes. So one of the examples was Bestie Corner or Outleisure. So I thought it was a really interesting redesign from the traditional stores. I think where I struggled a bit was given the traffic into the store and the space within the tunnel. I noticed those areas were definitely getting the attention of the shoppers, but it was a little challenging to really stop in that space and browse and shop, given the limited space you had in that entranceway.
Well, and for those who are going to visit, you keep going through the store, and you go down the escalator, and you go to the basement, and the basement looks like a Target store.
Yes.
It hasn't changed. The checkouts and the self checkout, that part hasn't changed. I did notice that the product code readers weren't functioning. So sometimes I think about, you got the design right, but then, there's some tech, fix that tech, because that's kind of the basics, but, sometimes easier said than done. Now, we wound up the tour. We went to GU, which is Uniqlo's Price Fighter, and the new Lululemon concept store with just this beautiful escalator. Then we wound up at a place called Tecovas, which I call special, not big. Did you draw anything out of there? I mean, they were kind enough, and people were great. Nick and the team bought us all a beverage. What did you make of Tecovas?
I loved it. I think it's a impressive specialty store. I mean, what hit me when we first walked in was actually the smell. So the smell of leather, everything cowboy boots, hats, and gear. I almost felt like I was walking into the Yellowstone TV show, right, with the Dutton Ranch, and I was going to see Rip and Beth sitting at the bar, which, yes, I mean, they've got a bar in the store. So really talk about hospitality, but it was more than that. I mean, they had great products, great service to back all that up. The display, the decor was right on point. Like, it was a really great physical activation of what everything their brand, this was new to me, but everything that their brand seems to be.
Yeah, I definitely think they're one to watch, and who knows, maybe we might see them up in Calgary for the Stampede. I know I talked to their CEO on the Remarkable Retail podcast, and one of the big markets they're looking at is Japan, which they think can be a great market for them, or Germany, and these, so they're thinking globally. But for now, they're expanding north of their Texas base. He told me they just opened up a store in Detroit. I thought the New York store was their most northerly store, but they're definitely expanding. They're testing the idea, I think, that a concept, that you mentioned Yellowstone. They're also a big sponsor of Landman. They're all wearing their boots and some of their clothes. Like, they're testing whether that Western, it's kind of a niche category. He described it as sneaky big. In terms of its potential. Do you it's an interesting idea where retailers can kind of take a niche idea and expand it. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think to your point, in media and the TV shows and other things, I think this category has exploded over recent years, and haven't really seen any large retailers find a good way of integrating this sort of specialty area into their store. And I think they've got a great store and a great brand that could explode.
Yeah, the other one I think in that same category in the U.S. market is Boot Barn, which is actually CEO is a Canadian fellow from Vancouver. A bit of fun trivia there, or as I call them, fun factoids. I wanted to end on a quick discussion around Nike and Skims. So the Nike and Skims stores are right across the street from each other on Fifth Avenue. We didn't go there, but I called it out in the guide. And what I called out in the guide was apparently the Skims launch at Nike was the most successful apparel launch in Nike's history. And that was reflected, I thought, when I went to the Nike store on Fifth Avenue, and they had a huge Skims display. You saw something else when you were in that Nike store. Talk about it.
Yeah. I went there to check out the Skims, as you had pointed out, and then I found myself in the middle of a new shoe activation. So Nike Mind, new shoe just launched this year, and you walk in and you can try on this plasticky shoe sandal. You put the headphones on and you listen to a coach sort of guide you through what to do, where to step, what to feel, what to pay attention to, what to experience, really, as the shoe is meant to activate the brain. So it was quite busy. I haven't seen sort of any results coming out of the shoe and purchases and adoption, but an interesting activation as they were launching a new product.
Well, Nike's a big business, and may have lost a little bit of market share to the Hokas and the On Runnings of the world, and even Lululemon's got a great running shoe, but never count a big business like Nike out. All right, let's wrap the discussion on this tour. What practical insights did you take away and that you might be sharing with your retail customers from what we saw on the tour?
Yeah, I think kind of back to where we started, the importance of that courage and authenticity coming together to really drive those meaningful experiences. I know I mentioned as we were chatting on the bus, my side on the people side of transformation and the people side of change. I think we continue to have lots of conversations with retailers about how to elevate and transform the role of store managers and store associates and the value that they bring in the store to really be engaging with customers in that shopping experience in the moment and helping them with the right tools and capabilities to be able to better spend their time bringing that value in that experience. So, I think as we go through and was paying attention to the different people and the associates and, what they were doing as we moved in and out of the store. And, I think between the merchandising and the design and everything else, I think one of the things we continue to focus is really on the store team and how to get them to continue to drive the experiences that you want customers to have. And part of that is enabling them with the tools and the capabilities that they have to do some of the work for them that they shouldn't need to do so they can spend their time in more value add activities.
Let's shift gears a little bit for the few minutes we've got left. You sent me, you forwarded along, Own the Agentic Commerce Experience. So coming out of NRF, I think I heard one or two people talking about AI. maybe
just one or two.
Maybe all 41 or 43,000 people. It certainly was very present in one way, shape, or form in and amongst the trade show floor. And you guys published this report or this brief research study. Tell us about the study and the conclusions and what we should learn from it.
Yeah, I think everybody knows, use of AI applications is increasing. What we saw here in Canada is that over the past 2 years, it's actually increased 82%, which is significantly higher than the global number. I do not think that means that Canada is ahead of the global peers. I think it means that 2 years ago, we were a bit more cautious in adopting AI. So people are using it to research products, look for reviews, find deals. I think what's interesting is what's coming next, where people said, 21% are interested in using AI to attend a virtual event. So maybe a product launch. Like that Nike Mind doesn't have to be in person only, right? To try on things virtually, not just clothes, paint, home decor. And 26% are using AI to evaluate trade-offs. So we're seeing globally, for a variety of different reasons, shoppers are trading down to budget-friendly alternatives and others are selectively indulging or paying more for the brands they trust. And when you think about AI and agentic commerce, it's now going to be AI that starts making those purchasing decisions and navigating those trade-offs on behalf of the humans and the consumers. So there's a whole new realm of understanding the AI agents, where they fit in the shopping journey, almost targeting them like a new customer segment, thinking about them as a new customer segment, how you would identify them, how you would target them, how do you give them the data, the product data, the personalization data, so that the AI agent is making a decision that's in, the favor of the retailer or the brand. And I think that's the evolution we're starting to see into more of this agentic AI and agentic commerce versus where we are more today, which is where we all have AI assistants helping us throughout the shopping journey, but they're not ultimately making those decisions on our behalf. That decision still sits with us.
Is this good for retailers, or is this just another intermediary that they have to deal with and build authority? Like, it's not like retailers can stop the progress, but should retailers be more worried or concerned or optimistic about the impacts of, these shopping agents?
I think optimistic. I think the reality is customers are adopting AI. They're adopting it faster probably than retailers can deploy it. So I think it's being intentional. It's being intentional around your shopping experience, physical and digital, and how those intersect, and where you can look at, your data, where you can look at the expertise that you have in the team, where you want to be able to influence those shopping experiences, to be able to serve not just people, but to serve AI assistants and AI agents, each of which are going to require information in different ways.
Is there an opportunity for retailers? I think about how much hard work has gone into building loyalty and loyalty programs and the direct connection with the customer. Is there an opportunity for retailers to stand apart from all this and say that trust becomes a little bit even more so of a valued commodity, given, I see some of these videos that are created in AI and they're so real, but they're imaginary, whereas the real essence of a relationship can be fostered through, loyalty and retailers in place. How do you put all these moving parts into one kind of coherent thought, I guess, or a point of view?
Yeah, I think trust is going to be key. Consumers, need to share their data, and many consumers are okay with sharing their data as long as those brands earn their trust and keep their trust. And that's really going to come through transparency and security. So being able to pull vast and varied data across their enterprise, make sure it's secure and compliant and governed, make sure if you have an AI assistant built within a loyalty program or a mobile app for your store, that what it provides to a consumer is explainable and accurate and auditable. And all of this will continue to reinforce that transparency and security. And that continues the flywheel of just building and earning more trust and then more advocacy.
If folks listening want to get a hold of you or get in touch and learn more about what you do, how do they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn. Information will be in the podcast details. We can share it there. And happy to put any other contact information in there that's helpful. We'd be happy to chat, to talk through the study and what else we're seeing with clients, and where we see a lot of technology enabling AI first retail operating models and really helping to transform that shopping experience in ways that customers actually want.
And we can put a link into that survey into the show notes as well. Yeah, you're happy to share that with everyone?
Yeah,
fantastic.
Of course, happy to.
Well, Jayme, so great to get you on the mic, and we had once again, thanks so much for being a partner. And without partners like you, these things don't happen because they take a fair bit of time and investment. But now I get the best of both worlds because now we mind your insight after the tour. So thanks so much for joining me on the mic here on the Voice of Retail podcast. Really appreciate it, and look forward to keeping in touch. And wanted to wish you safe travels.
Absolutely. You as well. Happy to be here. Thank you for everything.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, follow on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically each week. And be sure and check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast with Steve Dennis and the Global E-Commerce Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, Senior Retail Advisor, Keynote Speaker. If you want more content or chat, follow me on LinkedIn. Safe travels, everyone.